The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
All right, coming up on this edition of Today's Verdict, New York State's prison system often ban items coming in from the outside. And this makes sense, but this time they have banned something unexpected: fresh fruits and vegetables. Why? Is it fair, and is it constitutional? We learn more today with an attorney who specializes in laws surrounding incarceration. Next, income tax season is right around the corner, so we tackle a few ways you might become a victim of tax fraud. Our expert will be on set to give you much-needed tips to protect your hard-earned money. As you can see, we have much to get to, so stay tuned. Today's Verdict starts right now. Hello and welcome to Today's Verdict, the live and interactive show that gives you your legal rights and options. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesch. Well, Today's Verdict is always encouraging you to stay connected. Make sure to tweet us at Today's Verdict and hashtag Ask Today's Verdict if you have a question. Also, make sure to like us and follow us on Facebook at Today's Verdict and check us out at bronxnet.tv if you can. Listen, one of the very few moments a person looks forward to while behind bars is receiving a care package of home goods from their loved ones. But now, fresh fruits and vegetables have been banned in New York State's prisons. Family members have to choose from a selection of pre-approved items in the company's catalogs rather than from local grocery stores or their very own home. We will learn all about this with Legal Aid Society staff attorney Caroline Shu. Caroline, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Listen, it's a tough time for those behind bars, certainly during the holidays. Let's back it up for a second, if you could. What was the policy with respect to getting goods, packages to loved ones who are behind bars before this new law? Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it used to be that if, say, I was a mother and my son was behind bars, that I might be shopping all month long, looking for deals, buying in bulk, taking those packages apart to save up to put together a care package for my son, and that would be shopping at local supermarkets, bodegas, grocery stores, discount stores. Now, I would have to go online and shop through one of these prison vendors, which are companies that exist solely to take money from people in prison and their families.
Now, New York State, just not to cut off a second, but New York State in the past would allow family members to actually show up at the prison and bring a package into their loved one, or would you have to mail it? Walk us through the process. How did it usually work? Let's say I was behind bars and you would come in to visit me, and I wanted you to bring me something. How did you do that?
Yes. So, of course, people could mail packages in before, but one way that people saved money was to bring packages when they went to visit their loved ones. And I would bring my packages, I would drop them off with the officer, and then I would go visit my husband or my wife, my child. And, you know, that option will no longer be available.
Did they scan the package when you were there in the past? Would that be something they would do?
Of course. So, of course, DOCS polices for contraband, as it should. It searches through the packages. It has X-ray machines. DOCS has drug-sniffing dogs. They have technologies that they can rely on and expand the use of to find contraband, which is their purported reason for instituting this new rule system.
Now, this was very interesting to me because from what I understand, a lot of the prisoners and those who are incarcerated do not like the prison food and won't eat the prison food. So they do rely on the food from the outside. Is that true? Are they not eating the food that's being
A lot of my
prepared?
clients tell me that the prison food is pretty deplorable, and especially people with medical conditions, but everybody wants to stay healthy and eat a lot of healthy fruits and vegetables, and people, fresh fruits and vegetables, and should have the option to do that. The new rules eliminate the option to buy perishables, meaning that people can no longer get fresh fruits and vegetables, which is very, very difficult for them, especially for people who have medical conditions.
Well, how would it work? Would they get fruits and vegetables, and then it's brought to the cell, and they make it themselves, or do they give it to the cook, and the cook makes it? I mean, how does it even work when you get food brought in from somebody else?
Well, often people would eat raw fruits and vegetables. Most fruits don't need to be cooked to be eaten. Some vegetables don't. People also have ways of cooking sometimes in their cells, and there are microwaves available in some units.
And they're allowed to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Depending on their living situation.
So let's get right down to this new regulation and how it's affecting those behind bars right now. Are there how would you, even as a loved one, decide or get food in to somebody who's behind bars now? If you can't just go to a local bodega and buy it and bring it in, how would you get food to me now?
So now I have to go online to one of these prison vendors, figure out how to use their website, which I can tell you is not that easy, and try to put together a package that you can afford, which is very difficult because these vendors tend to charge far higher prices than community standards.
Give me an example. Let's say, for oranges or apples, is it twice as much? Is it?
Well, so unfortunately, we can't get oranges and apples anymore, which is part of the frustrating thing about this.
So you can't even get those foods.
Right. But we can get, let's say, instant oatmeal.
Okay.
An instant oatmeal that I found on Amazon for less than $3 was $7 and I believe 26 cents from one of these vendors. And that's, it's oatmeal, people rely on it to eat, and that is, to give you a sense, the prison pay scale starts at 16 cents an hour.
Wow.
And tops out at 65 cents an hour. And family members are saving every penny to take calls from their family members because calls are collect. A trip upstate to visit can be, well over $100 a person. Imagine taking you and your 2 kids to see their father. That's $300. And then you can't bring your package with you. You have to pay for shipping, even though you're taking all this time to go up there. The new rules just really don't make any sense.
No, the companies that apparently are bringing the food in, do they have to pay the Department of Corrections a certain amount of money that they're making from this? I mean, if they're charging twice the amount of money for an oatmeal, are they then giving some of the money back to New York State or some of the money back to the Department of Corrections?
No. In other states, they do take a commission. New York State has told us and that they are not taking a commission. However, this is money that is coming from New York people and out of state to these larger vendors, many of them based out of state, instead of to our local grocery stores and supermarkets.
All right, well, Carolyn, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second. We know that in many of these prisons, there's contraband that's brought in, there are weapons, other prisoners are getting slashed, they're getting hurt, sometimes there's even drugs that are being brought in. How do you prevent this other than maybe regulating any type of packages that are coming in from the outside?
Well, I think you combat contraband by being smart about it. And technology. Invest in enhanced technology, enhance in drug sniffing dogs. Those are far less costly options in terms of financial cost to families and people in prison, as well as health costs and public health costs. It's really hard for me to imagine how much contraband can really slip through packages after an X-ray machine and a drug sniffing dog.
By the way, if the packages are coming from these companies that you're ordering from online, I assume they have to be checked as well. Contraband can always come in through the companies. If somebody makes a contact at one of the companies and brings something through, So
the companies they have been selling themselves to various state and local jurisdictions by saying they have this double-blind packing process, which is supposed to guard against that. But still, the officers have to open, they have to open the package, they have to look through what's there. And
was there a particular event that made this happen? Was there something that happened in a particular prison throughout New York State or in New York State that created this snowball effect of That's it. We're regulating all the packages that go in? Because I didn't see
Not-
anything in the news on this.
Not to my knowledge. And in fact, I would say if we're looking at contraband entering the facilities, let's also look at staff. And the department has taken some actions to try to search staff more, but those don't go far enough. And they shouldn't then choose the alternative of really taking it out on the families and the people in prison when there are many far less exaggerated responses.
Speaking of which, let's talk about First Amendment here. What covers with respect to a prisoner and the rights with respect to the Constitution?
Well, we are very concerned because this new vendors only rule apparently also applies to books and religious literature and religious items. So if we would call this a non-content based restriction, makes it so that a broad range of publications can't be had by the people in custody, then that raises a serious First Amendment concern. Same with religious literature and items.
Because what I've read, they throw the books out. That if the books come in through a family member, they'll toss the books.
Apparently, it's not clear to me exactly what they're going to do, but right, the books can't go in. And it seems really unreasonable to me. If I order a book from Amazon, do they really think that there's going to be contraband? That someone in Amazon is slipping in contraband to somehow get it to a person in prison? That seems, I find that very dubious.
Yeah. All right, tips. Somebody's watching today. They have a loved one inside. Maybe they don't have a credit card. Maybe they can't get online. What do you tell somebody who wants to get some care package to somebody upstate? What do they do?
Right now, this is a new program. Give us your information. Let us help you. The number for my office is 212-577-3530, and they can also call the Alliance of Families for Justice, which is working with us on this issue. And their number is 347-973-0580.
All right, now, politically, what are we doing to try and quash the new regulation? Where are we going? We have lobbies? What are we doing here?
Yes, I think we are trying to tell legislators this is happening, inform them. I think we've heard that people are upset about this. This is something that matters a lot to people's constituents. And I should add for family members, another tip is to tell their loved ones on the inside to file a grievance. File a grievance and appeal it all the way up.
Well, can you tell us how to do that? Because a lot of people don't know how. It's very important. How do you file a grievance if you feel that you've been treated unfairly while behind bars?
Absolutely. So if you are behind bars, you go to the grievance office, you file a grievance.
And where would that be? Is that in the prison someplace?
Yeah, it depends where it is in the prison, but generally people do have access to the grievance system. The important thing is to appeal it all the way up. Without appealing, because of the Prison Litigation Reform Act, if you haven't exhausted your administrative remedies, you're going to have a huge problem getting into court. But if you're steadfast, you try to appeal, sometimes the prison throws things at you and tries to prevent you from appealing. You just continue to appeal, submit letter appeals if you have to, if they're not letting you process your appeals.
Where is the process, though? I mean, is it administrative? Do we end up in federal court? Can we move to state court? Where does this all take place if it's not worked out, by the Department of Corrections?
Well, I would say all options are on the table. Right now there's still facts coming in. So right now, we don't know. Are they going to add more vendors with more books? Are they actually going to make a more robust library system? I hope so.
Okay. Well, all good stuff. Hopefully you're going to come back in the next maybe 6 months and let us know what's going on, and feel bad for those behind bars. And it's certainly something that they're usually looking forward to, especially during the holidays. So you'll come back and give us some more in the future, right?
Absolutely. Thank you, David.
We have to take a quick break, but don't worry, we'll be back with more Today's Verdict right after this.
Coming to you from our BronxNet studios, 4 new shows highlighting some of the best of the Bronx has to offer. We sit down with political leaders on In the District and discuss local legislation, events, and issues. See how the community and business come together with The Bronx Now on BronxNet. Nosotros features leaders from our Latino community. Meet those who are moving to make a difference in public service, business, arts, and culture. Looking for new and exciting dining experiences? Then you'll want to savor the Bronx and try new restaurants and eateries that fill the borough with delicious dishes. We have it all, so experience the Bronx in new and fresh ways on BronxNet.
All right, welcome back to today's verdict. I'm your host, David Lesch. We are always encouraging you to stay connected. Tweet us at today's verdict. Well, with income tax season fast approaching, the IRS and you have to watch out for any issues of tax fraud. Making false claims and intentionally failing to report all income received are just a few of the frauds that lead to criminal and civil penalties. We'll learn more with attorney Scott Fenstermaker. Scott, thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
Okay, it's tax time. I know I'm getting my stuff ready. I'm sure many people are. Right at the get-go, maybe there are some very quick things you could tell somebody who's getting their things ready for their accountant to not go afoul of the law.
Right, and I think basically what people need to do is be organized, have their income items in one pile and all their deduction items in another separate pile. And if they run their own business, then certainly dividing up all of the different type of deduction items appropriately helps as well.
Which leads us to the thought process with respect to making a mistake on your taxes, right? There's the, I'm doing it on purpose, and then there's the, I made an honest mistake. Maybe you could walk us through both possibilities.
Well, an honest mistake is at worst negligent, and might not even be negligent, but a fraudulent type item is basically when a person knows what they're doing is false and they purposely present that to the IRS or to the state for the purpose of evading taxes.
All right, let's give a few examples of some fine citizens who've run afoul of the tax code purposefully.
Okay, one thing that people can do and sometimes do is underreport their income, and when they do that knowingly, that's fraudulent. And also falsifying deductions, for instance, making up receipts, completely lying about making a deduction and putting it on their return, things like that.
Now, we see a lot of cash businesses, especially in the Bronx, in all different areas. How does the IRS even figure out that you've been getting monies that are considered to be income and yet not reporting it? How do they know what you're getting in terms of cash receipts?
It's different ways. I mean, first of all, they investigate people's lifestyles. They know what they're spending. They can look into what their rent is or what their mortgage is. In addition, there's actually cooperators, people who have been convicted of other crimes and who are helping the government by informing on others. And also sometimes people will leave a trail. They might deposit the money in a bank account and not report it. And
well, it's funny you should say that, because I know banks many times will let depositors know, internally, we want to know, you've been making a couple of deposits here, cash deposits. Where are you getting these monies from? Is that?
Sometimes, and it depends on how they're structured as well. I mean, there's a reporting requirement if people are depositing in excess of $10,000, and if they try and split it up in deposits that are a little bit less than that, that in and of itself is a separate crime, unrelated to the tax crimes. So there's any different number of ways that the compliance people at the banks can see anomalies.
All right, so let's get back to, you're filing a false tax return, and they think you are.
Yes.
Right? How am I notified? Let's say it was me or somebody I knew. How do you generally first get notified? I may have a problem here.
Well, it can happen generally one of two ways. First of all, they can just issue a standard audit notice for a civil examination. Or what can happen is two special agents from the Criminal Investigation Division can come to your door and want to speak to you.
And these are federal agents?
Yes.
Okay, this is the federal government we're talking about here.
Yes, with the IRS.
All right, so I see them at the door. I'm like, oh boy, this isn't good. I'm hopefully smart enough to call you. What's the next thing that you do?
Reach out to the agents. Generally, the agents will give the person that they're looking into their card or cards, and I get the cards from the client.
Do you generally see the same types of agents on the same kinds of cases, or does it really vary?
It varies.
It does vary.
It varies, yeah. They generally have a geographic location that they're responsible for, and it can come anywhere.
All right, so now you have the client. Client's being accused of tax fraud. What documents are you looking for? What are you trying to do to even begin the defense of this particular individual?
All of their financial documents. It's particularly prevalent in small business owners. So you basically want to start doing an audit of the small business. And generally, any tax case I have, whether it's civil or criminal, I generally get a forensic accountant to help me. And they go through all the records and do an audit.
Now, if this particular business already has its own accountant, do you work with that accountant as well to see what's been going on? Because sometimes the accountant may be responsible for filing a fraudulent return.
Exactly. There's always, in a criminal investigation in tax, there's always a conflict of interest between the client and the accountant that prepared the return. So I essentially refuse to use the accountant who prepared the return, not necessarily because the person did anything wrong, but because there's always an inherent conflict of interest there.
And does that accountant end up having his own attorney, or?
I usually recommend that I do. In fact, frequently I actually represent the accountants in cases like that, yes.
Okay, so now let's say things are not being worked out between you and the agents and the agency. What's the next step? Are we going to trial on this case? What's happening here?
Well, what happens is that at some point there's a referral to the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice handles all the federal tax crimes, whether it's from the Main Justice Department in Washington or the U.S. Attorney's Office in the locale. So generally what will happen is I will contact the prosecutor either at Main Justice or at the U.S. Attorney's Office to discuss the case.
All right, now let's say this particular person made an honest mistake, and it's not intentional, but it's really more of a negligent filing.
Yes.
What happens then?
Well, assuming that we can convince the prosecutor's office that that's what it is, then essentially they can go through what the standard audit process and issue what's called a notice of deficiency. A notice of deficiency is a civil process in a tax examination where the government formally informs you of the fact that they think that you owe more money and that you have the right to challenge that assertion.
What's the penalty here? What happens? Let's say, the person, puts a deduction down, and the rule of thumb is, well, if you have the deduction, take it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what most people. That's the advice usually. If you think you got the deduction, take it. If they say then pay the penalty. What is the penalty?
A lot of it has to do with whether or not you've actually filed the return. The most important thing for a taxpayer to do is to file the return, because the penalties actually are 10 times higher when you haven't filed the return than when you have.
Which, Scott, and I've seen this in the news, whether it's celebrities or sports figures, some people don't file the taxes, yet they have made money.
Right.
Do they think that the IRS just doesn't care that they didn't file a tax return? What's the thinking behind this? I don't get it.
I think it's a lot of avoidance. It's generally avoidance. I mean, I've represented people who haven't filed returns for many years, and they tend to be very nice people and very professional and upfront people, but they're just avoiding an unpleasant obligation.
And let's say they haven't. How far back can the IRS go? Is it different than when they could go back in terms of tax fraud?
Well, with respect to a fraudulent return and with respect to no return, there's no limitations period.
Which just so the viewers understand that, the IRS can go as far back as they want to go if they think you're purposely bringing if you're purposely cheating them.
They
correct?
can go back there's no limit whatsoever.
However, when we're talking about negligently filing your claim,
right.
It's how long?
It's either 3 years or 6 years, depending upon the parameters. It's generally 3 years, but if you fail to report over 50% of your income, then it's 6 years.
Now, I know the IRS does go through cycles of, various people who work there, maybe politically things change. Do you find there's been an upbeat in terms of prosecuting, or at least
it's actually
going
gone
after
down.
people?
It's
gone
actually
down.
Yeah, because the IRS is essentially being eviscerated for resources, and it's sort of actually from a taxpayer standpoint is a travesty because
They're not going after people who owe money.
exactly, and it's a big problem. It's a big problem. The IRS is grossly understaffed, and they need a lot more resources.
All right. I guess they're going after the bigger cheese. Is that how it usually
It
works?
depends. I have some small cases, and I have bigger cases.
Bigger
It
cases.
really depends on who gets flagged and who gets the audit notice.
Okay. Tips. All right. I know we kind of started off with little tips, but now we got some big tips going. You think you're being investigated. First thing you do, in terms of your documents and your papers and witnesses, maybe. What do you tell somebody?
Well, basically, you have to get everything organized. I mean, a lot of people want to, who are not familiar with the law, will actually want to try and hide or destroy evidence, and that in and of itself would be a separate crime. So
Okay.
it's something to avoid. You just get organized, get a professional, whether it's an accountant or a lawyer, who can help guide you through the process. The one advantage to using a lawyer is the attorney-client privilege. As people know, when you speak to an accountant, that accountant can be compelled to describe what you've told them, and an attorney cannot. So that's one advantage that we as attorneys have with respect to representing people in tax investigations, both civil and criminal.
All right. By the way, where do we find you? Because unfortunately, somebody may have a problem when it comes to taxes. And
Right.
where do we get you?
Well, they can either call me at 917-817-9001, or they can email me at scott@fenstermakerlaw.com.
All right. And you will come back, hopefully, before maybe tax season's over, or even after tax season, and give us maybe some more information. Before I let you go, because there's one question I want to ask you. This is very important.
Yes.
Politically, with respect to Trump and the White House, do you think this is going to make any difference in terms of tax fraud, or it's just really a non-issue at this point?
I think that the IRS at this stage has been so eviscerated that there's no way that they can recover from it, actually. It's under-enforced.
All right, well, good stuff to know. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us, and of course you, the viewers, for watching. If you missed any part of today's show, be sure to check it out at www.tv. Also, remember, if there is a legal issue or topic you'd like to see on a future edition of Today's Verdict, feel free to contact me at David Lesch at bronxnet.org, or tweet us at Today's Verdict, and make sure to hashtag #AskToday'sVerdict. From myself and all of us at Today's Verdict, always remember, know your rights, know your issues, reach a verdict. We'll see you next time.
After 15 years of smoking, Eva Marie quit. There's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking. Now start screening. Learn more at savedbythescan.org.